My name is Jacqueline Harper. My journey into the supernatural continues. I went back to my hotel after meeting with Detective Romwell. I had a lot of questions concerning the month of April. He had given me a couple of cases and I was eager to assist. There was one in particular. His name was William J. Fraser. He served in the Middle East and was now nearing the end of his life. Since I was already in the US, I would continue traveling down south. I sat with my morning coffee while I typed up the rest of my notes from the previous case. A notification came up. I had received an email. Again, William J. Fraser. I did a search on him. Former military veteran. It had to be fate. The email was from a nurse from a nursing home. She said one of her patients was showing signs of demonic possession. I am not sure why I've been approached about this. Surely there were other people who were far more qualified than I was. Exorcists, demonologists, and others who specialized in this sort of thing. I remembered how inexperienced I felt in comparison to Romwell. But, as always, my curiosity got the best of me. How could I refuse this opportunity? My journey to the nursing home was uneventful, and I listened to the radio. But I was consumed by my thoughts, and the adventures of survival in the waste were playing in the background. Occasionally, I had issues with the radio, but I figured it was because it was an older rental car. Finally, the sign appeared, and I made my turn, parked, and entered the nursing home. There were many older people around me. Some were aware of their surroundings, but many were not. Already, their minds had left them. I immediately had to smack down a feeling of guilt. When was the last time I saw my mother? It had been far too long since I saw her last, even before I had to flee to the States. The dementia had taken a hold of her, and the words she would whisper on the phone were,
"Can I help you?"
The nurse distracted me. "I'm here to see Mr. Fraser, I said and looked at the name on my phone. "Oh, William J. Fraser. He goes by Bill, I believe." I looked down at her name badge. Ella, the same nurse who had emailed me before. But before I could speak, the nurse led me down a long corridor, and I had a strange feeling in my stomach. With every step, the sensations became more intense until we reached his room. Room number 7. A light flickered above me, and I could have sworn I saw a face in a mirror. William lay on his back, hooked up to machines, and looked over at me. He was frail, clinging to life, and soon he would pass. Despite being invited, I had a feeling I was intruding. I stood awkwardly at the doorway with my recorder, notepad in my hand, and looked around. There was no family with him, only a picture of him with a woman who I assumed was his spouse.
"Are you Miss Harper?"
He asked weakly, and I nodded. "Yes, I am," I answered, a little confused. Did the nurse tell him I was going to come? I hesitated and stepped closer to him. I didn't like the idea that he was alone. I held my bag close and felt uncomfortable. I mentally chastised myself for being rude, placed my equipment on the bedside table, quickly pressed record when I noticed a shadow in the mirror and jumped backwards.
"Miss Harper."
The voice rang out, distinct and malicious. I turned to look at him again. Something about him was different. He gestured for me to sit beside him on the hospital chair. I hesitated for a moment, wondering just what I'd managed to get myself into. I got my paper and pen ready. I began to sketch the change. I listened closely while wanting to keep my distance. I had to lean closer to hear him.
"I want to tell you my story. I need to tell you my story."
Mareed said. The color didn't so much return to Bill. Instead, his skin seemed to turn more grey, almost like ashes or gunpowder. Still, curiosity got the best of me, and I leaned closer to the possessed man. It was clear that the person I was speaking to was no longer Bill. "If you aren't Bill, who is it that I'm speaking to?" I questioned. My skin crawled with the uncomfortable thought of someone or something else in control of my body.
I am Marid, the grand titan of Jinns, the mighty, and soon to be free from this vessel.
A Jinn? The first I would meet on my journey. A genie? My knowledge of these beings was minimal, and this was the perfect opportunity to learn more. "Are you saying that you are being held prisoner in his body?" My curiosity overtook my fear, and I took a seat beside him. Bill's body had a smoky mist surrounding it. His facial features contorted into a strange expression, and again, that unsettled feeling in my stomach.
I unknowingly traded one for another. I never thought I would have been outsmarted, and by a human, twice in my lifetime.
"You say you traded one for another. Were you in the body of someone else before?" I asked, making sure to sketch the change, every single one. With a flick of the page, I could show the transformation from Bill to Marid. Marie chuckled, a grim sound.
I guess I will tell you everything. There is nothing that can stop me now. I had been sealed away by a sheikh many years ago, trapped in a brass vase.
The Jinn's influence on Bill's body seemed to grow more intense by the minute. Every so often, I could see mist form around him. An outline of something. Something was growing. I scribbled what I imagined was a shape, sealing him away in a brass vase, and Bill's body with Marid inside. "So it was Bill who got you out?" I asked absent-mindedly, caught up in my imagination.
He did no such thing.
The Jinn snarled and caused me to snap to attention.
He and I made a deal, and it's only prolonged his end of the bargain. Up until this point.
"Let me speak with him," I insisted. I would like to hear this from Bill's side of the fence. Again, Marid laughed.
Do with him as you must. I will continue to squeeze his remaining life force like a grape.
The smog seemed to almost retreat back into Bill's body, and his once glassy eyes sparked with life again.
You have no idea what will happen once he's released into the world. On death's door, I made a deal with Marid. It was 1981, during the Soviet war in Afghanistan. We were sent in to aid the Mujahideen and rid their land of the communist regime. I was left to die in the desert when I heard a voice calling me from the ancient temple ruins.
It was Marid.
Yes, we made a trade. If I freed him, he would keep me alive through this goddamn war.
You had no other option.
I had to get back home. Back then, I had someone waiting for me. I released him from the vase, but only heard a sinister laugh. He told me I was a fool for trusting a Jinn, and that I was going to die in this blistering heat. But there was one mishap he didn't consider.
I leaned in. And what was that?
Mareed could not move past the sacred grounds without his body melting like acid. He screamed and roared in fury. I knew then what his situation was.
So you made another deal with him?
Yes. The only way he was able to leave was through my body. As long as he remained in the Holy Land, he had to take refuge in my body. So, before I left Afghanistan, I had the druidic pagans of Mustafa bind a part of his soul in me.
Bill raised his shirt to show a tattoo that looked like some sort of seal. What convinced you to do such a thing? Why keep such a dark thing so close to you? I asked, eager to find out his reasons for making the deal. Before he could answer, Bill began to cough and the dark mist seeped out of his mouth. Mareed had returned.
His time draws near, and so does my freedom.
The shadowy mass had grown to envelope the entire room. I tried my best to hide the feeling of terror that dwelled inside me. My hands instinctively trembled. Without realizing it, I had broken my pencil. However, I looked at him with a straight face and asked, "So what now, Mareed? Where will you go?" Mareed spiraled around the room and looked down at me from the ceiling.
When Bill first saw me, his eyes were filled with fear. A man ravaged by war, who killed so many without batting an eye, cowered at the sight of me. But you are so unfazed. You've seen beings beyond this world, haven't you?
I'll just say, this is not my first rodeo, as the Americans say.
Yes. One of them still lingers in your mind, I see. You humans are so interesting. Always meddling with things you shouldn't be.
Yes, I see her almost every night. I blushed. There was no escaping Selene. Not that I could forget any of the others I'd encountered either. He wasn't wrong, I thought to myself. A breeze began to cycle around the room, growing stronger by the second, and I had to place my hand on top of my items to stop them from lifting up.
I'll drop one word of advice, Miss Harper. Don't go dipping your feet in waters where you cannot see what lies beneath.
I've been managing pretty alright so far, but thanks for the tip, I answered with uncharacteristic bravado. I remembered Rommel's words of warning as well. Only seconds passed, yet it felt like an eternity had. My hand rested on my pounding chest, and it felt as though my heart would burst through my ribcage. Mareed, the Jinn, was now free in the world once more. The twisting wind in the room had come to a halt. It was difficult to breathe, and finally the Jinn had vanished, and William J. Fraser was no more. The beeping of the heart monitor had flatlined. I looked down at Bill one last time to see that there was a smile on his face. His head turned to the portrait at his bedside. I felt torn, happy and sad at the same time. "You are free at last," I whispered. And with that, I closed his eyes with my fingers and stood up, turned my equipment off, while the nurse came in to record the time of his passing. The same nurse, Ella, the one who had emailed me before, entered the room.
"I would like to keep in contact with you,"
she asked, and I nodded in agreement. I suddenly felt exhausted from the encounter. I gathered up my belongings and stumbled out of the nursing home. opened the car door and sat inside it with my head in my hands. Again, another warning. I wondered why I was still doing this, and would the nurse Ella be in touch with me soon? I turned on my car, and for the first time, there was no dreadful static for me to deal with, and I drove home listening to the radio. My arrival back to the motel was simple. I had a shower and a nagging drive to be clean after the encounter with the Jinn. Exhausted, I curled up into bed and thought about whether Selene would visit me. A succubus, a vampire's fangs, a ghost, a detective studying the strange, and now a Jinn would haunt my dreams. My last thoughts before I drifted off to sleep were about my next case. Reed's warning lingered. I heard whispers of a lichen in one of the nearby states. And as always, my curiosity got the best of me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I would like to thank my guest, Mad Chatter. He has been incredibly supportive of the Harper Codex project. In fact, I'm pretty sure about when I first posted it on Twitter, he was in my DMs within a couple of minutes. Mad Chatter also has an ASMR channel for you to check out. If you enjoyed his characters, please subscribe and take the time to check him out. His voice work is incredible, and I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes in the future. I would also like to thank Curious Raven, who starred as Ella, who will be featured in a later episode. I'd like to thank Weekly Creeks for his assistance with audio editing, Ram Yoto Animations for the intro, Eden V for these images, and last but absolutely not least, Tanner Stokes for creating the original soundtrack for the series. Now, do you have any idea about who the next guest will be? Or are you interested in taking part? Please feel free to like and leave a comment, share with your friends or foes. This video was made with the support of my Patreons. Stay safe, my little spooklings. And remember, I'll be watching you.